So one of the things that I questioned was the purpose of marriage, and because marriage can be complicated in the Black community, so a lot of us don't want to repeat it because of things we may have saw in childhood or different things, family members or things that they models that they gave us on TV that were very unrealistic, and some that they gave us that was, I would say, devastating for us, or the music that they gave us. We had these complicated and unrealistic expectations of why to get married and why not to get married. So for me, I had to be shown, God had to show me in the realm of the spirit why marriage was important. And for me now, what he wants to really articulate is the reason, what's happening behind this whole gender war thing, because he hates it. And the reason why he hates it is because it is not it's not a battle that's happening in the natural realm. It's something that's happening in the spiritual realm that's a manifestation of the fight between God and these angels, these beings. So I didn't even believe I didn't even believe in these beings. I didn't believe in any of those things, okay? I just didn't. I knew that it was something wrong, but I never really knew why. So the scripture that he gave me to kind of, it birthed all the rest of these verses that I'm going to bring up today is Genesis chapter 2, verse 18. It says, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a help meet, or I will make a help meet for him." So I know I have a lot of family members, predominantly male in general, but they all kind of say, "Hey, that the ones that are single say, hey, I'm good. I'm good by myself. I need to be married." And it's like, well, I thought about it. I said, they have Madden, they have Pornhub, they have women that they see casually, they have Netflix, they have their fraternities, they have a lot of different things that distract them from being by themselves. So for them to say, yeah, I'm good with being alone, if you took those things away from them, would they really be good with being alone, right? So that's just on the surface level, because it's very hard to talk to people who in general are oblivious to anything deep. But just on the surface level, if you took those things away from them, would they really be good, right? What would happen? Would they start getting bombarded with intrusive thoughts that were probably already there, but because they have so many different things to distract them, they can just, use these things and kind of like drown out the extra noise. So be that as it may be, God wanted his people, his children, even those who don't know him, that may just follow me, um, just because they know me and they have not made up their mind. He wants everybody to know, because he says in James 1 verse 5, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, right? And he'll give it to everybody liberally, whether you are his or you're not. So you have made the decision to follow him or you haven't. You have a question you can ask. So when we grow up in these households, and it's not welcome to ask questions about anything, or question things, a lot of times what we do is, by not asking questions, we actually delay the plans of God for our life, because we won't do a thing if we don't understand it. So for me, I didn't want to get married because I didn't understand the purpose of marriage. I didn't understand it because I felt like it didn't work. It's a product of divorce. It caused more heartache than anything. I've seen people who put on child support become suicidal and pay, ridiculous alimony, and the courts pretty much raping people behind marriage. So for me, it's like, I knew you may have known you wanted to be a mother or a parent, but everything else seemed to be very terrifying, and I didn't know too many people that had actually planned to get married and had successful marriages. Everything was like a oops, and then we just rolled with it. So saying that is to say, he wants me to let us, or to let everybody know, anybody that watches this video, he wanted us to know why it wasn't good that man should be alone, why it's really a big deal that man should not be alone. And before he got to Genesis 2, verse 18, the answer to what was going on was in Genesis chapter 1. And in chapter 1, if you see me looking down, I have to read some of the stuff that I wrote because it's a lot. But in Genesis 1, verse 26, it says, "Let us make man in our own image, after our own likeness, and let him have dominion over the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, over the earth." goes on in the next verse to say, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created him, male and female, he created them. You see in that verse where that's repeated, he created man in his own image. In the image of God created him, male and female, he created them. He really wanted to put emphasis on the fact that he created male and female. Not all of these extra pronouns and, identities, and he didn't create all that. And he's not the author of confusion. So when people are coming up being deceptive and they're not, they identify with a thing and they want you to honor that, God is not the author of confusion, period. He does not want you to be confused. He wants it to be easily laid out because there is a purpose behind him creating male and female. He didn't just do it just because, and he didn't just do it just so we would be fruitful and multiply and that's it. So the next verse, Genesis 1 verse 28, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it. So every time I read that always bothered me. Subdue it. Subdue what? Because when I always thought about subdue, I thought about subduing my enemies, right? So what were they supposed to be subduing? Because nothing in the chapter talks about what they were subduing. We don't even understand that there's a problem until later. So he said early on, hey, this is the image I want you to model. My image, the image of God. This is the purpose. The purpose was for you to have dominion in the earth and to subdue a thing. So he told us the image, the purpose was to have dominion, and he told us how to do it. You be fruitful and you multiply and replenish the earth and to subdue it. But the word subdue in the Hebrew means, it's a word called kavash. So kavash is like the word love, right? Love is an action word and it's a noun. So it's a verb and a noun. So kavash in the noun form means kavash in the noun form is a footstool. But in the verb form, it is a word called kavash. So it's kavesh. Now, I may not be pronouncing it right, but it's kavesh and kavash. Kavash is the verb form. Kavesh is the noun form. Kavash literally means to place the foot on the neck of your conquered enemy, signifying submission of the enemy to his defeater, right? So it was something that they needed to subdue, a footstool. So something was already a footstool. So you need to make a footstool, something that was meant to be lower than you. You needed to make your footstool a footstool, if that makes sense. So it's just like you needed to love, right? People who love. That's the concept it is. You need to make a footstool a footstool. So now he gave you the image, gave you the purpose, and gave you the method in which you were going to go about your purpose, right? So you got the image, you got the purpose, and you have the image, and the method, right? So the image of God, the purpose was to be fruitful and multiply, and that's pretty much what we're supposed to be doing as male and female, right? So it wasn't just about having a bunch of kids. There was something we needed to subdue, and we were not introduced to. So in chapter 2, it talks about, again, it's not good for the man to be alone. Mind you, in chapter 1, it mentions that there was something in the earth that needed to be subdued. And we didn't know what that thing was. So now, chapter 2, this is when Adam was put into a deep sleep. The reason why this is significant is because right now, men are in deep sleep, and a lot of women are woke to what's going on. As women are being used by God to wake men up, okay? And that's not in a forceful way, but you see a lot of women on YouTube that talk about spiritual things. A lot of women are prophesying, right? Because it talks about this, that your young men would dream dreams, and your women would be prophesying and would be having visions. So as there is noise being made in the earth, one thing that's also happening is that in the end, because in Revelation, Satan is wroth, meaning angry and upset with the woman. So when you talk about the Antichrist, right? The Antichrist spirit is a spirit that doesn't like women. Why? Because in our unity, in the male and female unity, there is more happening than just sex and being fruitful and multiplying. we needed to subdue the enemy. So the enemy does not want male and female unifying. And once they do that, then what? It's going to be more of them to subdue them. Why? Because in Deuteronomy 32, verse 30, it says, one can chase 1,000 and two can chase 10, right? So who would let male and female get that advantage? And he already has at least 5,000, 5,500 year advantage over human beings, right? He's been figuring out all of this time, looking at bloodline after bloodline, who has the anointing in families and seeing when these people come together. No, we don't want this. So now, what are you putting in place? You put in fornication, loose living, um, uh, alphabet communities, right? But in alphabet communities and Planned Parenthood and all of these things for us to literally commit spiritual suicide. So now, as these things are magnified, right? All of our worst traits, you see, especially as Black women, our worst traits are being magnified, right, on social media, right? On all these, it's like all Black women are this, they that, they. And so now all we're seeing is the worst of each other. So why would we ever desire each other? You wouldn't. So it's like, hey, I don't need a man. People are not saying that they don't need a man. That's not really exactly what's happening. As people are not showing up in their rightful seats and they're not showing up in their leadership posture, what's happening is that what they are showing up as, women don't want. Because you got to think about it. Women say, oh, I don't need a man. What's a lot of males walking around in dresses, right? It's still a male. So we're not saying that we don't need men, okay? We need more than a male because, again, it's males walking around with dresses on. It's males that are, um, living sketchy lifestyles. It's males that are doing a lot of things that women are not in agreement with, just as much as it is as there are women that are doing things that are completely ungodly and that are completely Jezebelic and are trying to exert leadership and rulership and ownership of men versus respecting them. So the thing is that if we don't understand the reason why marriage was a thing for us to be doing in the first place, we won't do it. If we don't recognize the battle between genders as a spiritual problem with an illuminated being, because again, once we're introduced, and let me go back, once we're introduced to this character, right, in Genesis chapter 3, it talks about the serpent, right? The serpent was more cunning. It describes the nature of a serpent, but it's not saying what the serpent looked like. But if you look up the Hebrew word for serpent, it's this word called nakash. Well, the word nakash is actually an illuminated being, right? A shining one. So what is this even referring to? Well, when it talks about in human beings, when he created them, he created us out of clay, out of dirt. But angels, they are created from light. They're light bearers, right? This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with angels. So when people say, well, I don't believe in that, I don't believe in these things, but we see the fruit of this in the earth. We see a lot of people worshiping the devil. I mean, blatantly worshiping the devil. But somehow we don't believe that we are living in a spiritual cesspool. Our natural realm is a result of what has happened in the realm of the spirit that we have yet to identify or yet to address. This has been a ongoing battle from the beginning. So once we're introduced to this snakish character, this snakish prototype, that it is describing his nature and not what he looked like. Because again, they put serpent there, so we know one thing about a serpent, a snake. It doesn't come off as a snake. It deceives you into showing its nature. So as it describes its nature, and we know that this is an illuminated being, this is when we're introduced to this only after Adam and Eve are put together. So once they're put together, they were given the assignment, right? They were given their assignment to say, hey, we should be walking in the image of God. We need to be fruitful and multiply, and we need to be subduing the earth. Once they were given those things, here comes the enemy. So now you get lost into remembering what was the last thing that God said, right? So he said, don't eat from the tree. This is what you were supposed to be doing. You were supposed to be subduing something. But no, when you're disobedient, you can't subdue anything. So if you don't know the laws of God, because you're not reading the Bible, why? Because Satan is working overtime to distract you, to put you in front of sports center, to take you out to girls trips, to live your best life. Or is this another hot girl summer? Because this is what he's working overtime to do. You cannot show up for this type of assignment. You can't. So you're not going to be recognized by the person who's designed by God, right? Because he's the person who creates these things. He's the one who's doing these hookups. So as he's hooking up people, Satan is sending counterfeits. So now you are lost in the girl. I think he the one. I think he the one. I think, and everybody the one, but you ain't thought one time to, again, if any man shall lack wisdom, ask God. You have not thought one time to ask God about, is this the person I should be dealing with? Lord, did you send him? Lord, did you send her? What is my assignment? What is my purpose? So when you're not walking in purpose, right, you can't really hear from God. So you hearing a lot of noise. The noise might look like your friends. The noise might look like a bunch of text messages from a bunch of your roster of men or a roster of women. You got so much noise going on that it's impossible for you to ever show up to this assignment. You can't. But that does not mean that these things are not taking place. That doesn't mean that just because you didn't show up for the assignment, it does not mean that the battle and the war and the assignment is not still necessary. The war don't stop just because you decided not to show up for it. It's still going. Guess what? And even though you didn't show up for it, you still in it. So you might as well just stop and decide to engage in the war that's after you anyway, because it's not waiting, and it's not waiting on you to figure it out, because it's already working on your kids and your grandkids that are not even here yet. So as you're here, right, you're here in this earth, everybody is well past you in terms of the realm of the spirit, thinking about how to snatch up your kids. And so as you're waiting, as you're not considering the why, as you're not considering your purpose, meanwhile, the enemy is still moving the way he's been moving, the same serpent he's been from the Garden of Eden. So the longer it takes you to be obedient to God, the longer it takes you to be blessed and to inherit the favor that you need to be able to chase 10,000. But you can't chase 10,000 if you're in your singleness. And am I saying that everybody is going to be called to marriage? Absolutely not. But most are called to marriage. But most cannot get married if, for one, you don't understand the purpose. You don't recognize this as a spiritual war, because all you seeing is talking points that you relate to, because you're very much still unhealed. And I get it, because I was. So now you're looking for more teachers who appeal to your emotions versus who appeal to your purpose. Okay. If you don't have somebody to point these things out, you'll stay in that same posture. You'll stay in that same singlehood that really makes you be wasted. Because if God cannot use you, right? Think about it. If every day you wake up and you serve yourself and God cannot use you, that's a scary place to be. Because at any time, you lived your best life today. You lived your best life yesterday. You've been doing stuff the way you've been wanting to do it on your own, testing the patience of the Most High, right? At any time, he could say, you know what? You out of here. I mean, and we're seeing people do it all the time. People dropping dead constantly. But at any point, he can say, you know what? That's it for you. So I hope that you all took something from this, because for me, once I realized that I was not, human beings were not alone, and I really accepted, like, okay, it's really something out here that is stalking and pursuing us, that's in the air, that's in the water, and that's in the earth, like what he said. Because for everything that's in the natural, that thing exists somewhere in the spirit realm. So when we're fighting these wars, we're wasting our time fighting each other, because this is a spiritual battle. So if in your single season, and I actually love being single, it used to feel like a curse, and I was up under a curse. But the part of being single where you're walking with God and he's teaching you how to war, enjoy that. Enjoy it, because then you know how to show up when it's time for you to get in that stage of life, right? You know how to do it. It won't be something that you're trying to figure it out as you go along. You've already been walking with God. You've been trained and conditioned for warfare, because that's what it's going to be as soon as you get into it. You're not wrestling with flesh and blood. Ephesians 6:12. We're not wrestling with flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities in very high places. The high places are the people who are over the laws and legislative places that put laws that are against the marriages of God. They're against the covenants of God and the plans and purposes of God. This is what we're up against. So if you're not ready to sign up for the assignment, guess what? Life still is going to happen whether you're in it or not. So you might as well sign up for it. But hopefully, I have been able to articulate to the best of my ability, because this is the way that he showed it to me, was to show me what we were actually up against and why this was necessary. Because if you don't see it, you'll think, hey, I'm single, I'm living my best life. And it's like, no, you're getting slammed. You're getting slammed because you don't realize you're in a war. So you have your guard down. You're not really realizing that it is spirits and there are assignments against you. And as long as you feel like that's not the case and you're oblivious, you already lost. You already lost. So in this season, as we see more and more of the alphabet community rise up and they going against what? The image and the purpose um, of God for marriages and stuff like that, as you see these things rise up, at some point that passive attitude that people have, like, hey, I mean, whatever you do, that's your business. Well, the thing about that is that as long as you tolerate any of these things and you don't look at it as sin, if you don't look at fornication as sin, and I'm speaking to myself, I fornicated, so we all have had sins, we've all fallen short. So I'm not saying this in a judgmental way. I'm saying this in a way that repent and put all of that down and actually get in the fight, because it's fighting you anyway. It's gonna fight you anyway. So you might as well sign up for your assignment. But the longer you do and the longer you're delayed, chances are somebody somewhere is also delayed because you're not doing your assignment. You don't get the assignment, so you won't understand why it's necessary. So I hope this helped you all. I hope you got something from it. I will come back because he gave me another word, but I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for that one. So, Lord willing, I'll come back with another word, and you all have a blessed day.